Welcome to the third and final program that we have on our author forum, the GPSolo author forum. And today we're going to be talking about, so you're published, now what? We've got some of our most amazing, longtime new ABA authors. We've got Jeff Fredericks, Rachel Landy, we've got Nick and Larry Rice, father, son, and we've got Dr. Artika Tyner. So let me tell you a few little housekeeping questions. We want to have a Q&A. So I'd like for you to write your questions, just put it in bold face question and put it in the chat, and then we'll get back to it on the Q&A. This panel of established ABA authors will share their secrets to success as an ABA author. We'll teach you how to leverage your status as an ABA author in your career, and we'll provide you tips on how to make the most of your author experience. So please remember to mute your mic if you're not speaking, and you can be seen if your camera's on. We're also offering a 20% discount on all the books discussed here today. The link is in the chat, as well as the link to the ABA web store where the books can be purchased. We're also going to put a copy of the ABA proposal in there and ABA author guidelines and just lots of other good information. So make sure and check the chat. But we would like your questions, and anything and everything is up for grabs. And we're just going to have a lot of fun. And thank you to our authors. We've also got our wonderful director of ABA Publishing, Donna Gomer. She's here today. Donna, would you like to say a word? Donna? Okay, I'll come back.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thanks to all of our great authors that were able to take some time out of their busy schedule and speak to all of you about publishing with the ABA. So thanks so much, and I look forward to hearing what everyone has to say.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. You know, one of the things I just have to give a shout out to our ABA publishing staff. They are, Donna is the head of ABA Publishing. ABA publishes 110 books a year. And here she takes her time to come to all of our board meetings. She's at all of our programs, this author forum. We did this program a couple of years ago in Las Vegas. And she just, just to have that kind of support from the very top just means so much to us. So thank you, Donna, so much for that. We're probably going to get a little visit drop in later on. Oh, there he is. I'm so glad he's here. Stephen Curley is our chair of GPSolo this year. He has been he used to be our revenue director. So our book income is part of our, it's part of our non-dues revenue. It's part of our budget. And so he was always very supportive of books, not just for the money side, but, that had a lot to do with it. And so now he's wanting to bring those back. And so Steve, say a few words about just why you love our ABA authors and why you think this author appreciation piece to your year is so important.
Well, thank you, Melanie. And I just wanted to round out these presentations that we had over the last couple of days, because I've talked about the arc of how this process works and how it starts with ideas, and then you go look for support to develop those ideas, then you look for implementation. And now we're getting to the end of, or the last phase of the process. First thing I was always taught when it comes to this situation is thank people, because you've gone through the procedure at this stage of the game that we're going to be talking about, and we're now talking about making the best of all the hard work that everybody's put into things, and that really deserves a note of appreciation for each and every one of our authors, our staff that helps facilitate all this, and the volunteer leadership that Melanie and our board have shown in support of our authors. Melanie mentioned I was former revenue director, budget officer, and I guess that never gets out of your system once you start in that vein. And as important as the general support that we receive from the ABA and from our members, and as important as our sponsors are, the third, and I think the real heart and soul of our non-dues revenue comes from our authors and our publications, because it takes and converts the expertise and the scholarship that you've all developed, and it extends it to our members. And that's yet again a reason to not only show our appreciation for you, but for everybody else who participates in this process. Those of you participating in this call and those of you listening in are going to learn about the satisfaction that comes from engaging in this. And I'm sure this has always been the case, whether you're writing a short piece or whether you're writing a full book or a chapter of a book. There's always a moment or two in that process. And sometimes there's more than a moment or two in that process where you think to yourself, why am I doing this? How could I have done this? And I just wanted to make sure when you hit that moment again, whenever you're writing again, that there's always somebody out there to appreciate what you've done. And I wanted to be making sure that you knew that this division wholly appreciates everything that you've done, and hopefully what you'll be doing in the future, starting with this presentation today. So Melanie, I'll stand down and I'm going to sit back and listen to these authors' experiences. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. We really appreciate your leadership and your support. It means everything to the authors, to the book board, and to everybody. Also, I just wanted to mention we've got a couple of our esteemed officers here. We've got Melody Wilkinson. She's our secretary. We've got Alan Olson, who's our budget director. Just shout out, thanks for supporting all the efforts of the book board. Our chair, Tom Urquhart, will be appearing later on. He got called away for an urgent work matter. And so when he comes in, we'll take a break and talk to him. But I want to start off with Jeffrey Frederick, Dr. Jeffrey T. Frederick. He is the president, Jeffrey Frederick Trial Consulting Services, LLC. He's been involved in jury selection and jury research in hundreds of cases since 1975. And he has written extensively on the topic of jury trials and trial advocacy. And I just really want him, Jeff, you've been one of our most prolific authors. Every time the word Jeff Frederick comes up, it's like, boom, Jeff Frederick. So tell the audience what happens next. You've got your book done.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much. I want to start off by saying, keep two things in mind. One is ABA is your publisher, not your publicist. And the second is the shelf life of your book in terms of maximum sales is going to be within the first year to two. And so if you keep that in mind, you'll structure your activities accordingly. Now, before that book actually gets in press or in print, one of the things you've written a book, I want to step back a little bit and say, what you need to do is seek out good comment. What you want to be able to do is to find people in your area that if they put a good comment about your book, that you could use that on the cover of your book and in your marketing. And this is something to where you got to think outside the box. Don't just think about, well, I know these people. Think about who would really maximize the sales of your book. And I've had two current ABA. I have 4 editions of my mastering voir dire and jury selection book, and I have had 2 presidents of ABA at the time make good comments. I've had past presidents of our American Society of Trial Consultants. And these are really important things to get. So plan that in so that the ABA can put it on your book. And also, if you don't have that, ABA is likely to advertise for another book. So we might as well advertise about you. That once you've done that and you now have a publication date, you need to think about, how do I get the word out? And I think it comes in 2 critical phases. One is the announcement phase, and then the second phase is the sustained outreach phase. Now, in the announcement phase, you have the ABA. The ABA is going to be marketing your book, and what you want to do is to be in communication with them, find out what they're doing and how you might be able to capitalize on it. And they're going to be doing announcements through social media, the possibility of podcasts, there's newsletters, all these announcement vehicles are available, and you want to tie in with that. But a bigger key is going to be the personal marketing that you do. The ABA is going to do theirs. What makes yours an excellent and stellar book besides its content is how you push it. Now, you have your own contacts, you have your own social media outreach. And if you don't have social media, you should be involved in it. And you also have the possibility of blogging. You have the old school mailing list, all these avenues that you contact people that already have a connection to you and are more receptive, and you've written a really good book. Also, you contact relevant legal organizations, trade associations, the media, and these also have a announcement channel, if you will. That is, they oftentimes will have sections in their publications or newsletters, et cetera, that announce new things. And also, you would want to see if you could get reviews placed in some of these outlets. Then you have speaking engagements, letting people know, hey, this book's coming out, and I'll be happy to come in and talk about these key factors. And then you have other publications that sometimes will have announcement components, but also may do reviews. And so I really encourage you to do that. That's just the announcement. That's the kind of the first blip. And then you need to go to sustained outreach. Here we're using the same kinds of vehicles, but in a different way. What we're doing is our content shifts from, hey, I've got this book, to here's some important information. And if you want more, you go to the book. And so the whole emphasis changes. So we basically are trying to find ways of keeping the awareness of our book in the audience or the potential buying public. So we, again, use our own contacts. We use social media. We can do guest blogging on other people's social media. We can, integrate that way. Definitely, we can continue our speaking engagements and also in publications. And in a minute, I'd be happy to comment on that.
Well, good. Yeah, let me ask you this. How has it helped you in your career?
It's been paramount in my career. It's, to go in and say, I wrote the book. Oh, and by the way, I wrote the book.
Those are big books too.
Those
Jeffrey.
are big. They are big books. This is the first, the fourth edition. This was the original 1995 first edition. You can see how knowledge has expanded, or something has expanded.
Yeah, right.
But I do training seminars with Department of Justice, and I do CLEs all over the nation. It is, it's allowed me that kind of capability, speaking engagements. But in my practice, I mean, I have, my clients will buy my book and go, oh, I pulled these void year questions from your book, or I had this concept, I pulled it from your book. So it has been fundamental in promoting me as a trial consultant and being able to share, observations and how we can be more effective in voir dire and jury selection.
Well, share a couple of your marketing secrets real quick in our last couple of minutes with you.
Okay. Speaking engagements, do them. When I have a revised edition coming out, I adopt the motto of say yes to the address. So it's a matter of like, if they ask, I do it. And I also reach out to places that I would like to speak at and let them know about this. I do the training seminars. I work with ABA on getting discount codes so that when I go speaking somewhere, I can give them a discount code and give them a possible discount there. There's also, with the training seminars, there's a possibility of group bulk buying that happens if the organization is open to that. I definitely push it on my social media to where, the revision comes out. The next 10 blog posts are going to be 10 tips for mastering group voir dire, and it's like, in that blog post, you're going to have a link to the ABA. You're going to link to how you can get this information there. And then also I keep track with ABA and let them know of my activities so that if there's something that interfaces, it can be pushed by them. And finally, I still do a fair amount of writing. I had 2 articles published last year. I'm doing a chapter in another ABA book this year on the remote trials and online jury selection. And you best believe that I am citing my book. And finally,
that's a whole new area, isn't it? I think we need a new book on that. So keep thinking about that.
You may be looking at a 5th edition with that. I've done a lot of work with that and with pro bono with the Arizona courts. But I do want to say one last thing, and I'll turn it back over to you, is that, and of course, I'm going to deny this, I ever said this, but if the ABA sees that you're pushing your book, it gives them an incentive to do a little more on their part. You're all of a sudden, remember, I just heard that there were 110 books published during a year. That's a lot of books. Now, what you want to do is make sure that you're noticed. And if you can show them that you're out there pushing it, then if they go, well, we could do a podcast, who can we get to come in and contribute? Boom, your name is there. And I really encourage you, take advantage of that. The ABA, after all, is run by human beings.
I love it. Thank you. Those are some great pearls of wisdom. So now we're gonna transition to one of our new authors that we really love, and we're developing our relationship with her, Rachel Landy. Rachel Landy spent several years as a technology transactions attorney in private practice, advising hundreds of companies on commercial contract and intellectual property matters relating to day-to-day business, mergers and acquisitions, and initial public offerings before transitioning to a role in public policy at Google. She's also an adjunct professor at Cardozo School of Law, where she teaches contract drafting and tech transitions. So she is one of our newest authors. And we really, what I want to know, the title of your book is Beyond the Work Product, a guide to relationship-driven transactional lawyering. And that's kind of a mouthful. So what is relationship-driven transactional lawyering? I'm just curious, get that out of the way, and then we're going to move into your other questions.
Thanks, Melanie, and it's so great to be here, and it is indeed a mouthful. So what is relationship-driven transactional lawyering? I think of it as seeing the process of providing transactional counsel as being really integral to sustaining a long-term client relationship. It means putting a lot of value in institutional knowledge about your client and really building up that knowledge base, all done in service to continuing to build a business and client base that won't be tempted really to automate any of your work or look for other lower cost solutions, which I think will continue to come on the market. The best experiences that I had as a lawyer really did come down to the relationships that I was able to build, and the instances where I felt like I was really actually part of the client's team. And at the same time, what I saw was a lot of junior lawyers coming into practice, and they were kind of hesitant to build that relationship, eager to get an assignment, do the work, get it done, get it out the door, but with minimal client interaction, because it can be somewhat intimidating to talk to the client. So they just wanted to deliver the work product. But the issue really with keeping too much separation between the process and the client is that you have to talk to your client to get all the facts straight, and how you go about doing that. Getting your facts, talking to the client really actually does play a big role in whether that client comes back to you for more. And so the book is really about, helping junior lawyers in particular make sure they're giving clients the right amount of attention. They're asking questions that show that they have a good handle on the area of the law and the business. Teaching them how to have conversations with clients about where reasonable minds could disagree on approach. Are you presenting all the alternatives, talking them through, educating them throughout the process, and all at the same time demonstrating that as a lawyer, you are conscious that you are a line item on the expense side of the balance sheet. So are you thinking about their costs and being conscious of that? Because at the end of the day, that is what will drive clients to look for other solutions.
Oh, wow. That is really interesting. And I think your book is tailored more to millennials. Okay. They're kind of used to texting. I have seen in the last 20 somethings I've hired, when the phone rings, they just freak out. They are scared of answering the phone. So tell us how you're leveraging your book in your career. I mean, and the things you're doing to market your book.
Sure. So I think Jeffrey said it at one point where he said, there's nothing like being able to say, I wrote the book. It certainly lends some credibility to an author that just frankly doesn't otherwise exist. It's a massive accomplishment. For me personally, it's continued to open doors. Like I said, I'm an adjunct at Cardozo here in New York City. This semester, I'm piloting a new class, Tech Transactions, which is roughly based on the book. And that opportunity came to me to develop my own course and think through how I could operationalize that in the classroom as a result. And my longer term goals are to pursue further scholarship on many of the themes that I briefly touch on in the book in the coming years. So it's enabled me to continue building my network with other professors, adjunct and full-time, who teach skills-based seminars at law schools throughout the country, as well as, speaking to law firms, building that brand, offering, Jeffrey said, like, say yes to the address. I'm also like a say yes person, while the book is not my full-time job, it is something that I will, say yes to every time an opportunity comes my way, because single greatest benefit, frankly, for me, has been the immense source of pride I get in having written it.
That's so awesome. I mean, I feel we've got a budding Dr. Tyner coming here. Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, she's somebody you need to connect with. But so what are your tips? Give us your tips for aspiring authors.
Sure. I have a few. Yeah, that I jotted down. The first one was, don't overthink or over edit your initial idea or outline. Write everything down. I myself was surprised when I actually went back to start organizing my thoughts, how I found homes for certain themes or topics that kind of felt orphaned at first. So I'd say, like, put it all on the paper. For me, the paper was, a notes app in my phone that I would wake up in the middle of the night and jot down some things to go back to sleep, and do that for months on end. The second is set reasonable deadlines for yourself. It is an independent and somewhat lonely process to write a book, and so you've really got to keep yourself accountable to yourself. I had a goal that I felt was very manageable of 1,000 words a day, whether that 1,000 words took me 30 minutes or 2 hours. I felt it wasn't overwhelming, but it did help me accumulate steady progress at a good clip. Yeah. I would also say that, I guess, lastly, and this also touches on something Jeffrey said, is be prepared to market. The ABA is a fantastic partner, incredibly helpful in providing tools and developing ideas, but no one, and I really mean no one, is going to sell your book better than you.
Oh, that is so good. Yeah, that is one of the main things. It's a lot of work. You've got to be a publicist. You've got to be a public speaker. You've got to be a social media person. It's not just get my book done and they're going to do all the work. So that's part of what we wanted this program to illustrate. So thank you so much. Well, we're going to move on to Dr. Artika Tyner. And as you guys can probably tell, I'm very, very partial to her because I love her so much. She is a passionate educator, and emphasis the word passionate, poet, author, sought after speaker, and advocate for justice. She's been featured in a variety of media outlets. She's a prolific, award-winning author of adult and children's books that includes Amazing Africa, A to Z, and The Inclusive Leader, which I do have featured on my desk, taking international action for justice and equity. And Artika, she started, her first book was with the GPSolo division, and she was a tentative young lady at the time, wondering if she could do it. And I mean, you look at her now, you're like, oh, she knows about what? No, she had to go through the same process everyone else did. She started out with her TED Talk, and that took her off. So Artika, tell us about how has being an ABA author helped propel you into the publishing phenomenon you are now. And I mean it when I say phenomenon.
Well, I first have to say thank you, because you chair the ABA Pub Board and you've been a supporter and cheerleader since I did join. I joined in 2006, immediately after I graduated from law school. And I remember thinking at my first convening and my first ABA meeting, where do I even start? And I met you, and this is one of the things I want to say to everyone. A part of your success is your network. Your network is your net worth. They're the ones who will cheer you on. They're the ones who will help to market your book. But more importantly, they are the ones that will continue when you think you can't do it, that they will say, go one more mile further, I'm going with you. So I have to thank you for that, because you've been on the journey with me since 2006. That's a long journey together.
Yeah. And tell us, how did you leverage? I mean, you tell us a little bit about your first book. How many books have you got with us now?
I've done 2 editions of The Leader's Journey. My most recent book is The Inclusive Leader, and then also The Lawyer as Leader.
Yeah, right. And so then how did you pivot into your children's books? We've got to hear about that because we've used those in our meetings to go read and give them to children in elementary schools as part of our public service projects.
Of course, your books can also be your mission. When you think about The Leader's Journey, The Lawyer as Leader, and even The Inclusive Leader, the ABA was doing something unconventional. I literally, with The Lawyer as Leader, had written the second book in the nation related to lawyers and leadership. Many had said it was a soft skill, it wasn't relevant, but I used my research to raise awareness about the social justice issues that I was passionate about as a civil rights attorney. So it came natural. When I saw the data, when 1 in 4 American children are not reading at grade level, and you're 4 times more likely to drop out of school if you're not reading at grade level, and then it gets worse. You're 3.5 times more likely to be arrested in your lifetime if you're not able to read. And it was personal for me. Most of my clients learned how to read while in prison. And when I thought about that, it was natural then to say, let's make reading fun, let's make reading engaging, and let's also make it, we cannot deny the racial disparities in the criminal justice system. So let's also promote diversity in our children's books in real time so young people of color can see a positive representation of themselves on a page of book.
Yeah. Well, so do you think your TED Talk really helped launch you, give you confidence?
It did. I had to learn how to tell my message wherever I was in real
What was your
time.
message? What was your core message?
My core message is leadership and social change begins with you and I. That truly lawyers in particular, the theme was education for social change. We are uniquely situated with the gifts and talents and the skills that we need to think critically, think ethically, in real time, be those lead problem solvers. Everyone else will say the problems are too big to solve. But being in a community, and I don't want to miss this, no one's mentioned it so far, and I think this would have been the first thing that I would have mentioned. Hundreds of thousands of lawyers and the brightest minds are members of the ABA. To have a book published with the ABA first gives you access to that audience. And then from there, I had access to speak at state bar associations, to go into law schools, but I'd be remiss not to acknowledge we are strong within our own membership and our own numbers.
Right. But who are you?
Who am I?
In
I think
the
that's
TED Talk, in the TED Talk. What was your little phrase?
Yes. For
Wonder
my TED
Woman?
Talk phrase, it was that I wanted to become Miss Freedom Fighter Esquire, Wonder Woman with a law degree and an afro, because I knew that my legal training would be my sword to tear down some of these challenges that we face in our day-to-day lives in marginalized communities like where I came from. And then my faith would be my shield to be able to go forth and become what Socrates, Aristotle, they all talk about. Can we be the very personification of justice? Yes, we can. And it doesn't have to be limited just to our pro bono service. It doesn't have to be limited just to what's happening in the courtroom. It can be in every dimension of our lives as those community lawyers, as those change makers in real time.
Yeah, and I love that. So tell me, share some of your marketing tips. How do you, where should a new author start? What, I know they can start with their own communities and stuff, but give us some of your secrets. Tell us your secrets.
Well, you can tell by now, I know what my strengths are. My top 3 is I'm a relational learner input, meaning writing books is natural for me because I'm always researching and always exploring. So like the recommendations that you've heard so far, I'm always writing blogs. I have a column in newspapers across the nation. I had one for many years with Huffington Post. Recently, I have one with the Midway Monitor, with Insight News. So I'm constantly writing to get the ideas and content in front of people in real time. Because as a civil rights attorney, if we can identify the issues, we can then create the solutions. And then this was a recommendation from you, Melanie. You told me to start following Michael Hyatt. And I was like, wow, I'd never heard of him. But we all have heard of Michael Hyatt because Michael Hyatt helped to develop the career of John Maxwell. And for me, as a leadership scholar and someone who's earned my doctorate in leadership studies, John Maxwell is the gold standard. So with that being said, understanding in the book that you recommended for me was Platform. I highly recommend reading the book because it can give you the practical tools, literally in its title, how to get noticed in a noisy world. So I do a daily, it's almost like my daily reflection. I do a social media post, and I just started doing this, and I wish I'd done this sooner, but Jack Canfield told me to do this. When he came to our ABA meeting, he said, look, you have a strong voice. You're a strong advocate and you're natural at it. Why are you not vlogging and sharing your information in real time? So I do those 1-minute TikTok sessions on legal issues, on leadership issues, and that's how I've been able to build my audience.
I love that. I just love that.
We may cancel a purchase order in whole or in part.
Somebody's on, somebody hasn't muted themselves.
Authorization, and it's called solar.
Somebody hasn't muted themselves. Let's cut that off quick. Yeah, we had that yesterday, y'all, and it kind of, we didn't know what it was, but now today I'm recognizing it quickly. So your best tip is to get noticed and just follow your skills, know yourself. I mean, what I heard you say was know yourself, really know yourself.
Agreed. I think in that way, play on your strengths. If your strengths is related to writing content, then write for GPSolo and write some of those pieces in our blog. If you like, naturally, you can see right now, I used to think my name was Hush Child when I was small because that's all my mother would say. Literally, I'm a talker, and most lawyers are, right? So if that's being said, and we ask questions, we think critically, use that skill. So I've taken it everywhere from MSNBC. I've been on national news. I've been on everywhere because I'm willing to share what I know in meaningful ways. And I like what Rachel talked about as well. My other marketing technique and my brand is I'm a professor. I'm a law professor. So if you teach adjunct, or even if you're a guest lecturer, you have a captive audience. You can talk to other law students, inspire them, inspire an entire law school. I've had law schools create clinics for my books and build programming. So don't forget the law school in your own backyard and meet with some of the young emerging minds, and you'd be surprised what you learn, and you'd be surprised of whose life you can impact.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the literacy thing is really, you reminded me in juvenile court, I would make the kids read their statement, when they were signing off on a plea or something. And it was amazing how many of them had a really hard time just with the basic reading. So thank you for all the work you're doing. Thank you for being one of our wonderful ABA authors we're so proud of. And we're going to have some questions later on, so hang around. And now I'm going to move into the segment with Larry and Nick. So exciting. Yeah, Larry's one of my favorite people. I'm just getting to know Nick. And Larry has always, every time I've asked him to speak or do something or be a part of our book program and share his secrets with us about how to be an amazing ABA author. He's always he couldn't come to Las Vegas a couple of years ago, but he sent us a wonderful video that was great. So Larry Rice is the author of several articles and books, including Divorce Practice in Tennessee, The Effective Ethical Lawyer, and The Complete Guide to Divorce Practice, Forms and Procedures for Lawyers, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, 30th anniversary editions, another big book. The Complete Guide to Divorce Practice is recognized as the national standard for divorce and family lawyers throughout the country. Now, his amazingly handsome son, Nick, is sitting there. He started studying law in the 7th grade by learning to pull cases for his father's legal research and began practicing law immediately after passing the bar. Following in his father's footsteps, he also presents CLE lectures to other attorneys. In addition to trying cases, Mr. Rice uses his experience and knowledge as a Supreme Court Rule 31 family law mediator to solve cases without the matter going to trial. So I'm going to be talking, you guys can riff off of each other, and I'm going to riff with you a little bit. I kind of want you to give some of the history of how you do things and what Larry, I really want you to talk about your background, your first book, how you felt back then, because I want everybody to know everybody starts somewhere, right? You don't turn into the great Larry Rice with, overnight. You weren't an overnight sensation, but you are now. Yeah,
I heard it all.
You really?
I did.
Wonderful.
I will.
Good.
I want you to tell the audience how you use your books to promote your practice, and you also do a great public service to educate attorneys on how to do things right. Larry, tell us a little bit about you.
My first book was 200 pages long. It was a history of the American student movement from 64 through 68. It was written in 1974, so it was very much current history. And it was rejected by well over 100 different publishers. That book, nobody's ever seen except for those editors that went, we're not using that. But a guy came through town lecturing on probate systems. And I got in touch with the company that sent him through, PESI, and said, I can do the same thing. Would y'all like to publish my system? And they said, which one have you updated most recently? Because I had personal injury, DUI, wills and estates. And I said, divorce. And they said, okay, good. And so they published my divorce system. It was 140 pages long. I lectured in Knoxville, Nashville, and Memphis. And the book was good, but the lectures were even better perceived. That company went out of business, but shortly before it went out of business, the head of the general practice section had already come to me and asked if they could publish the book. So they started publishing it today. This is the book. Okay. Jeffrey, I'm going to challenge you to a big book fight at the end of the program. Okay. Back each other with our big books.
Just to be clear, he said books.
Yeah. Well, Jeffrey's got books. I've got about 6 editions over there. This is it. Another important lesson. It's easier to rewrite your book than to write one from scratch. Jeffrey, did I get a bobblehead on that? Yeah, I got a good bobblehead on that. Okay. This is the book. It's 1,000-page long. And how do I get people to buy the book? Okay. Enough of the story about it. How do we get people to buy the book? Part of it, Melanie's already introduced. It's the national standard. And since it's the national standard, if you do divorce and you haven't bought my book, you need to notify your carrier for whatever claims are getting ready to come down the road against you. Nick?
Yes, sir.
You want a question?
Sure. Or do you want to take your next one? Whatever's fine.
Melanie?
No, Nick, did you tell me? Yeah, Nick, tell me about how you feel about being an ABA author now.
I love it. I love the cachet of saying, I wrote the book. No, I can't say I wrote the book. I got to say Dad and I wrote the book because, what happened was I came along. There was a great system already in place. There was a great book. And as usual, like all good fathers do with their smart son, he stole my ideas until I put so many into the book that he had to actually give me a co-author credit. But it's great to say that I'm published by the American Bar Association. It's not the Tennessee Bar Association. It's not the Memphis Bar Association. It's the American Bar Association. That cachet gives me a lot of clout. It helps establish me as an authority in divorce. We use it in all of our advertising. I think we use it very effectively. I mean, I've run across multiple people that have heard, when we sponsor NPR, all of the stuff that we do to try to do that little trick where you advertise without advertising.
Right.
But people come up to me like, oh, I know you. Y'all wrote the book. Okay. And that's the tagline that we use. Y'all wrote the book. Y'all wrote the book on divorce. People I don't know, when they hear my name, know that Rice wrote the book on divorce. And it's once you're perceived as an authority, whether it's true or not, it definitely helps.
Right. It's just such a great credit to have. And then it also helps so many other people. But tell me, I want to hear how you guys organize those seminars and how you just the logistics of putting those things together for the new author or the author that wants to do this in the future. How do you market yourself? I mean, you're kind of having to toot your own horn a lot, right?
Well, I'm going to handle it the easiest way, and then Dad's going to talk about the more difficult way.
Okay.
Right. So the easiest way, if you want to put on a seminar, just go to your local bar, go to, whatever section of the bar you're in, your local bar, whether it's like for me, Memphis Bar Association or the Tennessee Bar Association, they're in the business of putting these lectures on for CLEs. So you go to them, they've got something already in place, and all you've got to do is have your material and be ready to present. So that's the way that I like to do it, because I'm always looking for the easiest way to get something accomplished. But Dad has been very effective in putting on the more complex routes when we go outside of that.
Right. Tell me about that, Larry.
Well, as you're interviewing staff, you say, have you ever put on a program before? And they go, oh, yes, I have. And you go, good, you're hired. Here's our program. No, actually, there's a lot more to it that I lectured all over the country. I think there's about 6 states I didn't get to, but I talked to their regional association one time. And so I've been all over the country, did a bunch of lectures, loved doing it, had a great time doing it. Now I'm 70 years old and I'm slowing down a little bit. after the first 10 years, I got frustrated with speaking at other people's programs and decided I'm going to put a program on myself, which basically I'd put the program on and then I'd understand, oh, now I understand why they were doing that that way. But we put the programs on. We did it every other year for about 12 years. And we'd have between 100 and 190 people show up from around the country for the program. As part of what they bought the books. We sold a lot of books that way. Then we got a complaint that, well, you know, it's not fair you making us buy your book. And I said, well, according to the rules for CLE, you have to have written material. So if you got a previous edition, you can bring that. Invariably, people would show up. One time, a guy showed up with the original first edition called Divorce Practice in Tennessee, A Systematic Approach, okay? This goes back to the 80s. It had shoulder pads, okay? And I tried to swap out with him and he wouldn't do it. He said, this is my book. I filled it full of notes. It's that valuable to him. But most of the people who showed up with old editions would at some point wander out of the seminar and buy the new book anyway.
Oh, wow. That's
So,
great. I'm sure you autographed the old one for him.
except that I'm dyslexic as heck. And oh, no, he didn't want anybody marketing his book but him.
Oh, wow.
He's retired from practice now. Maybe I can get his. But putting on the seminars is a lot of work. We would do a 2.5 day seminar. I'd speak basically, 10 hours of it?
Easily.
Yeah. And at the end of 10 hours over 2.5 days, along with being the producer and director, I was exhausted and done. But
Still, you're an adrenaline junkie, so you loved it, right?
yeah, and for about an hour afterwards too. And then it was put dad over in the corner and put a blanket over it.
That was when I was still little, so all I could really do was watch dad when he'd crash. When he was done with one of those things, there was none of the heavy lifting I could do to help.
Oh yeah. But
So
now
there's more to being an author than just writing the book. It's all of your
Oh, God,
activities and
yes.
your publicity. What about social media? Do y'all use that?
Never heard of it.
every day, my first job for my new boss, by the way, he's now head of this, he's head of Rice Law, which y'all got right for me, but I am not in Wilmer, Minnesota. On that little thing that y'all ran across the front,
Oh,
I was in
gosh.
Wilmer, Minnesota, but I worked.
I
for
think they
Nick
figured
now.
out we're all in Memphis
Okay.
by the screen.
Or at least the accent. Another thing is I get up and at 8:20 every morning, I post on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. And because 8:20 Monday through Friday are the best time to post, and posting actually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, your best days. And if you post between 8:20 and 9:10, you get your best pickup, okay? Then there's another bunch of people that show up about 9 o'clock at night. They're not generally as happy a group, but it gets out there and your message gets out there. And I would love to say that I am so thoughtful and literate that I write a blog post. I don't. I just steal somebody's joke or meme and put it out there. And it bothers Nick somewhat, but I get people coming up to me, people in Nick's age group going, "You're the funniest man on LinkedIn." And my feeling is that's like being the fastest man in a handicap wheelchair race. You know, it's just not a particularly impressive qualification, but it stands out. And LinkedIn,
Yeah.
God bless them, they let you put your blurb on the top of all your posts. And I'm getting more bobbleheads from Jeffrey. He's done it too.
Don't you love it?
You get a lot of travel with that. I've got 15,500 LinkedIn connections. I'm always carrying a hair below 5,000 Facebooks on my personal page.
Me too.
And we've got about 4,000 on Rice Law. So without spending a cent, I'm keeping an audience up there.
I
Now,
love it. What's the future for you, Larry? You're not retiring, of course.
no,
I won't let him. Mm-mm.
I tried that. It wouldn't work. I love what I do. I'm really good at it. We have taken the most stressful and difficult area of the law. Every time I go out and lecture at a convention, some guy comes up and says, yeah, I used to do divorce law, but now I'm doing capital cases because it's so much easier and less stressful. Jeffrey's laughing, but he's probably heard people say that same thing.
Yeah, it's true. And you know,
So-
Larry, one thing, if y'all noticed, have the viewers noticed how Larry keeps putting that book in front? That's a subtle marketing tip. You want to keep it, just like I have my books back here and I have Artika's book, but I have lawyers that sit on hearings with me. And while they're just waiting for their time to come up, they see my books, they start Googling me, they start, you know, looking me up. And then all of a sudden they call me the next day and say, hey, I didn't realize you were an author, blah, blah, blah. So every single little thing you do, and also holding the book with your hand down like that, so you're not blocking the name. You know, there's a lot of subtle little things, and that's why I'm hoping this program, you guys are sharing your gold. Love it, love it.
Well, I've done this for the last 2 editions of the Super Lawyer magazine. I don't know how many of y'all are super lawyers.
Yeah.
If you're not a super lawyer, I'll point out it's a disappointing experience. You don't get a superpower, nor do you get a cape. Okay. Cape was not an issue with me because if it said super lawyer, it would have been just SL, and everybody would have thought it meant stupid Larry. But you help with your numbers. I'm not supposed to tell anybody this, but I believe that you help with your numbers to be a super lawyer, said Larry Rice, who's one of the top 100 super lawyers in the state of Tennessee. If you support super lawyers by buying ads and recommending other people. My ad is the bottom half of a page that said, wouldn't it be great if a super lawyer in a particular field of law published a how-to book for their area? And then down below it says something along the line that has happened. The Rices did it. And it's the complete guide for divorce practice. Call 901-526-6701 and buy your copy today, or notify your carrier.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So Nick, tell me about what it means to be, you know, how the relationship with the ABA has been.
It's been great. That's why we're on the 7th edition of the book being published with the ABA. You know, and again, I got to say, I feel a little unqualified to be in on this section because I came into a great system and a great relationship that Dad had built up with the ABA. So all I had to do was basically come in and not screw things up, and I get to enjoy all the fruits of Dad's labor. I get to do that with the ABA. I get to do that with the practice. But Dad has always enjoyed his relationship with the ABA. That's why we've built up, gotten to the 7th edition. They're very good working with us. They're good with giving us copies of the book to sell, you know, getting that out there to the public, getting it all done. And again, that just all the value that comes with the name cachet of being published by the ABA. You know, it's been, in my experience, nothing but a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Well, listen, I don't see any questions in the chat. So let me just go back around and have a wrap up comment from each of our participants. Jeffrey, what would you like your closing statement to the viewer and prospective authors to be? Mute. You got to take yourself off mute.
I said something really bright, but I'll settle for this. I'd like to say, you know, to everybody, just do it. I've talked to many people that are like, oh, you know, I want to write a book, and you know, I really should write a book. And it's like, I tell them every time, do it. Don't look back and go, God, I wish I would have written that book. If you feel that you can write a book, that you have a message, that you have something that will improve our world, just do it. And, and keep doing it. And, you go ahead the first time, and then you have the potential for future additions. And, basically the rule of thumb is that if you can put in 10% new material, you've got a new addition. And so, quite frankly, that's how I've been governed. And I really encourage you that this is an opportunity that you have to grab, and the ABA will help with it.
Yeah, and nobody's going to do it for you. That's a lot of times people sit around and wait for somebody else to do it for them. And really they have to, they have to be the one to grab the bull by the horns and do it. Wonderful. So Rachel, tell me what your one great little tip would be. You got a couple of minutes.
Sure. So Jeffrey came with do it, and I was going to come with you can do it. It is a lot of work. There's no doubt about that, but it is a doable level of work. If it's something that means something to you, if you think you enjoy the writing process, like, don't be discouraged by the fact that it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight and requires a bit of discipline, because it's so extremely gratifying on the other side.
Oh, good. And I just got a question from Leon. What suggestions do you have to get started in writing in a time challenged environment? That's from Leon Peace.
I'm happy to offer a quick
Rachel,
answer. I've taken a number of writing classes over several years, and some of the best advice I'd ever got is 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes a day, it will get you started. And that goes, very manageable amount of time that doesn't feel overwhelming.
Yeah, that's how I do my workouts and my meditation and my gratitude practice. That really helps a lot. That's a wonderful tip. So Dr. Artika Tyner, tell us some more, because we loved your wisdom. You got a couple of minutes to share your closing thoughts to our audience.
I think everyone's captured it well, that basically writing the book, although it may be labor intensive and intense, that's 10%. I always tell my students who want to write is 90-10. If you want to write a book, 90% is really the marketing, finding your audience, and also finding your brand identification. And that's everything from the sense of what you wear, how you communicate, where your voice is found. Mr. Rice talked about being found on LinkedIn at a certain time each day. Someone's expecting that. So that's a brand consistency that you're asking. So the book is secondary to you understanding what is your value proposition. And for me, the greatest benefit of my books was that I could organize a modern day civil rights movement with the pages of books. And the reason why I knew it worked, I was in Ghana and they were building an omelet for me in my favorite restaurant. And I'm just chatting it up like, this vegetable, not this vegetable. And a man was like, Dr. Tyner, it's good to see you. And I'm like, stranger danger. So I kind of stepped back a little jarring, because I'm like, there's no way this man on the other side of the world knows who I am. And I think he saw how startled I was. I was like, no one knows I'm here. I'm just here. And this is a tip that I'll give you all as well. Join a writing circle, and then also make sure, because that's your accountability piece, and find the places where you're best at writing. My best place is in Africa. I don't know. It's like the ancestors are with me or something. I can write a whole book on the Atlantic Ocean and thinking it through. What's the best place for you to write? Where can you engage with others that share a similar interest and passion and hold each other accountable? I don't write a book alone. I write in, we have a sister circle. We come together and we write together in real time. And to that last question as well, I think a piece of time management is managing expectations in real time. Yes, doing those 5 minutes. And yes, the other thing, grab your cell phone. Sometimes I'm jogging around the lake and I talk my book into my phone. And then you can transcribe it. So there's so many different ways that you can go on this journey. My advice is just get started and start where you are.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Love it, love it. I'd like to introduce our pub board, our editor. She's the editor, Lorraine. Will you come on for just a second with us?
Yes, I'm starting my video. Yes, here we are. Hi.
Oh, there she is. And Lorraine, tell us, just give us a little author appreciation and just a little bit about how you work. Lorraine is like she's got a whole bunch of different irons in the fire, and somehow she manages to devote her time to us. I also want to give a little shout out to Sherry Nephew, our event planner for the ABA GPSolo division. She has worked tirelessly on all 3 of these programs. Sherry, can you pin yourself with us, please, for a second? So everybody can see you with us. I don't know if we can do that or not, but
Sherry needs to spotlight herself.
that's what I'm saying. She needs to spotlight herself, and she wasn't expecting that, so she'll probably get mad at me later. But the thing is, this is a collaboration. This is all of us working together. This is all of us. We love books, we love authors, and we just really want to bring a lot more into in our house. We've got room for more, and so Lorraine, give us a word. We got a couple of minutes for you, and then we're going to close with Larry and Nick.
But yeah, what do you want me to say? Author appreciation?
Whatever you want to talk about. I know you got some material left over from yesterday.
No, actually, I ran through it all in the last couple of minutes. Yeah, I was speaking at the original panel yesterday, and I had a whole sheaf of things to talk about. And I never answered Melanie's first question. So we had it into two segments. And so in my second segment, I went through everything. What do I want to say? I am so proud to see all of you, my authors. I cannot take any credit, obviously, for what you do, but it's a real great feeling to see you all speaking about the books that I know so well. You know much, much better. And to know how far you've come. I mean, I think that the first book I worked on when I came to ABA was Jeff Frederick's latest edition. And it's just great to see what's happened, I think. And I'm also amazed at how many great tips you have for people. And this has felt very collegial, one author to another. I also note that we have a couple of current authors in attendance, Lori Pasco, Michael Shanazarian, Darren Wirtz. Thank you for being here. I don't see any others, but and some of you who have been on the other, watching the other panels will recognize their names. Yeah. So thanks to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Lorraine. Well, I want to end with Larry and Nick, 2 of my favorite people. And I want you to, you can answer this question or any question you want to answer, because whatever you have to say, I'm going to be excited to hear. But, what about, your book educates everybody how to do what you do best. I mean, isn't that telling all of your secrets? Do you believe, like I do, that the universe is big enough and there's plenty of room for lots of good lawyers? I mean, how did you overcome all that?
First of all, thank you for not making us immediately follow Dr. Tyner again. I don't know how we got stuck on this billing, I thought you were supposed to save the headliner for last, and we got 2 divorce attorneys that are trying to pick up the slack.
I know. She's amazing, isn't she?
Yes. All right. So are we going to just...
We got 3 minutes. So I'm going to...
I'll be real quick. One thing...
Give me a second to say goodbye, and then we'll be done.
One thing I meant to mention earlier that I think helped sell a lot of our books, we got skipped over. So one point in there, if your book has forms, okay, we've got a lot of form pleadings and stuff like that in our book. It might be individual just to our book, but if your book's going to have forms in it, we sell a digital copy of the forms with it. And that helps in the sales because people are getting something they can quickly and easily use. Now, I used to think Dad was making a giant mistake by writing the book, lecturing on the book, teaching everybody what we knew. As that new lawyer, I was always nervous that I didn't know as much as the other lawyer. And I made that mistake of holding my cards too close to my vest for too long. Dad was always the opposite way. He's like, teach everybody, let them know what you're doing. You get benefits from it. And one of the first benefits that I noticed that we've gotten from it was when you teach other people what it is that you're doing, they're coming back, they're using our forms that I was talking about. We can tell lots of times from the pleadings that come out of the other side, which version of the book they're using. And then I know exactly what they're using, and I know what the new additions are. So I know what they're missing. So, you get a benefit. You do help other people along the way. And look, there is no drawback to having better attorneys, increased education across the board, being taught by anyone that's an expert, because when your opposing counsel is a better opposing counsel, there is more production in settlement. As far as litigation goes, it's expedited, and that's going to save your clients money. It's going to save you headaches. It's going to save all that time. So I was wrong in the beginning, and it takes a big man to admit that. And I appreciate y'all recognizing that. I was wrong in the beginning. Okay.
Love it.
It should have been more of an open book like Dad, and it does pay nothing but dividends.
It does. It really does. Honesty is the best policy. That's what I've learned. The more honest you are, and getting the reputation for honesty is really a good thing. So, Larry, give us a closing. Give us a meme or a quip or whatever you want to give us.
Years ago, thank you. I had a woman lawyer sit across the table from me and give that patent speech. The one where I'm ready for you. I've read your book. I know what you're going to do. And she says, so I'm ready for you. We were at a deposition. Her client had the child. And she said, so what are you going to do about it? I said, ma'am, I'm sorry. You seem to be under the misapprehension that I put everything I know in that book. So at the end of the deposition, 4 hours later, they voluntarily gave up the child to my client. So.
Right. You kept a little back. You kept a little back.
Yeah, nobody's going to be as good as you are on executing on your system. Yes, and I got Dr. Tyner nodded too. So now I really feel good.
And I do love the idea of a system, and how Rachel was talking about her workbook and how she made a class, and how Artika has gone off into all these wonderful directions, and how Jeff has used it to pivot to so many ways. I think he needs his own show like Bull. But guys, thank you so much for being here. We just want you to know we really appreciate you. We're proud and excited that you're ABA authors. I hope everything you shared will help all of our other authors, potential authors that want to come into the fold, that they will want to become an ABA author. And Sherry, are you going to pin yourself one last minute, or no? She may not, but let me, oh, there she is. There she is. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you. We want to thank Sherry for all of her hard work on these programs. And thank you for this wraps. This is a wrap, the 22 GPSolo Author Forum. Thank you, guys. Appreciate y'all.